Hey, in this video, I want to show you some things about when I'm studying the text, how I mark things up. Now, I've already done this with just showing you how to do it for those who use Doom Emacs or Emacs with Vim mode or Evil mode, and that's helpful. But for somebody who just, you don't want to mess around with any of that, let's jump into it from that direction. So you can do this with a piece of paper. You can do this with anything else, even a Word doc if you'd like. But I use this particular program because I can work much faster with just my keyboard. And anyway, I can just use my keyboard. I try to do that most of the time. So this is what I do. So we're studying the book of James, and we're thinking through, all right, how do we learn about the book of James? I already did a video on how there are 5 W words that are the main themes of the book of James. You've got words, wisdom, works, wealth, and wholeness. And so one of the things that was helpful to do in all this is to highlight those as you're going through the text, so you can see where James is hitting on those big ideas in the book, and to maybe even record them somewhere else later on. So for right now, what I want to do is just show you how I go about all of this. One of the first things I do, and some inductive Bible study, some inductive Bibles do this, is they just give you the text without any headings or without any extras to help you understand it. So that way you go in there, you put in what the headings should be called, and you go with it. If you need to use another Bible that uses the headings to kind of give you a head start, that's just fine. I'll probably do that every once in a while. But what I do is, in the beginning, and I've already done this, is I just take my text and I break it up into what seems to be paragraphs. You can use a Bible that has its own paragraph system to help you. But you look for those division sections, like the word but, always helpful. Or when the subject changes, then you can go, okay, right, here's something new that I want to change. It doesn't always work that way, and it's not like you can't go back and change it if you need to go change it. So that is one of the main things I want to tell you when you're studying the Bible. And maybe this is just me talking to myself, but when I'm studying, especially when I'm using paper, I feel like if I put my pen to paper, especially if it's on the Bible, then it has to be like, can't go back and change it. So I have to make sure that it's good. And that's not helpful because Bible study is, it is a journey in a sense that you are always discovering something new. And even what you marked that was wrong is actually can help you when you see that you did it wrong. So you can actually tell yourself why you messed it up. When Nicholas Luhmann created what's known as the Zettelkasten system of studying research and working through large blocks of theoretical works, he compared his notes to a septic tank. And I love that idea because it is just a place to store everything. So this Bible that I'm using, this digital Bible here, I'm not going to really use it with other people. I may use it when I'm teaching and stuff online, but that's how that goes. This is just, it's almost like a laboratory of a place where I can experiment and mess with things and have wild ideas and even challenge those. And so then you have like this journal of where you've been studying. Now, I don't really know how to timestamp all of that as far as to show you when this happened, but that doesn't bother me very much. But when you're doing this, the main thing is just to think about this, that put it out there, and you can go and challenge it later. But at least you've got something out there to look at. At least you have a trail of to look back at to say, all right, here's what I've been thinking about this passage, or here's what I was noticing with that passage. So it's okay to get dirty here. It's okay to mess around with some things. In fact, one of the things I like to do when I'm messing around with some of this stuff is block it out. So if I hit like enter here, I can do that and just kind of go, all right, let's see what else I can do. So actually, it'd be better if I went like this and hit there. So that's something you could do as far as blocking the text out and kind of visually going, okay, here's what's going on. And it's okay to leave it that way. I wouldn't suggest like changing the actual text of the Bible. But if you want to add like an inline comment, you can always do like a open bracket comment. I mean, I think the Amplified Bible does this, and it just sells that, and you can just buy it, and you can see a bunch of those brackets that kind of show those things here. But let's get on to what helps me a lot when I'm studying a text. I'm looking for those words that deal with those 5 major themes here. And we already see some right at the beginning. Now, what's difficult about some of this is words are collections of ideas, and some words are very closely connected to each other, but we don't always think of them as closely connected. So that idea of wholeness is really what the Greek word would be, the telos, and the completeness or the perfectness. So that word perfect here in verse 4, I know, is part of the theme. And so let's just highlight that. Oops. There. I know that. And so, hey, look, there's it is again. Let's highlight that there. So, all right. So I've got my 2 here, and got a few other places or a few other things here as well to think about as we're working through this. In this text, though, also we have the rich. So rich is not the whole idea of wealth, but it's definitely in part with it. So I think it's worth highlighting as well. And at this point, we're not actually making any judgments on the passage. We're just looking at any interpretive judgments, I should say. I mean, somebody could argue this is interpretive judgments, but this is just for getting the pieces of data together to analyze better. And a lot of times data is best analyzed whenever it is digestible. And so we're just kind of breaking this down so we can understand it a little bit better. So I probably should have spent some more time looking at this passage before I started this video, but that's okay. So, all right, so here's a section here about hearing and doing, and one of our themes of the book is works. And so you want to make sure that this idea of works, or doer, is it's highlighted. All right, so I'm just going to work through this really quick here and just highlight some things as I'm studying and figuring it out. All right, I just took a little bit of time to kind of highlight some things I wanted to show you. So 2 things that I did, I went through the text and I highlighted those 5 different words, the words, works, word, worth, and wisdom. No, words, works, words, wealth, wisdom, and wholeness. Those 5 ones. So I highlighted those. On top of that, what I like to do, especially with the epistles and like the discourse sections or the speech sections of the Bible, is to highlight the commands that are given to the people of God. And so I did that. So what I did with the blue here, the bold blue, those are the sections in which I highlight the 5 themes there. And so I can go later and make that. So here we go. And on top of that, I made the italic one that I have here. This highlighted, or this italic salmon color probably, is the commandments. So you can kind of look through my text here, and you can see just how that turned out. And that's one of the things I begin to do when I'm studying with it. You can come up with your own system, but what I try to do with the epistles and the speech sections is to find those places where the people of God are addressed to do a certain thing. May not apply to us right now, but at least, hey, look at it, see what it says, and take note of that. And you want to try to find those different things to look for when you're looking at a text. So, for instance, if you've done much studying of your Bible, they really like to put into you to make sure that you highlight or notice what the therefores are doing. So that's one you can highlight as well in the text. And so you kind of go through the text and look for those therefores, or even the 4 questions are 4 because they explain things, you know. So like take 19 and 20 together to see how it pulls it all together. So it says, "So then, my beloved brothers, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." Why? For the wrath of God, the anger of man, does not produce the righteousness of God. So there's James letting us know about our anger and our seemingly righteous anger. It does not produce the righteousness of God. There's something greater that produces the righteousness of God. So what does that? Well, we have to keep reading the book, or, I mean, you can just take this section here, and this next section really develops what it means to produce the righteousness of God. What does it mean? Well, let's just look at the commandments here, or the imperatives, the commands. Receive with humility the implanted word, all right? And be doers of the word. So just those two in of itself kind of show us what related back to this question here. We're getting into the interpretation of the section of thing, but just even thinking about what we've done as far as looking at the imperatives and the major themes, we can begin to follow James in his logic as he's teaching us what this book has to say. On top of all of that, what I would do is create some headings on this text. And remember, you don't have to keep these things permanent. You can go back and change them. So let me just add some headings here, and then I'll come back and, well, I'll just add some headings real quick. So with all of this, I've got headings here, and that's kind of the building blocks of how you begin to study the text. It's just a matter of laying things out so you can see it better, and then taking each chunk and kind of going, all right, what does this passage say? And not only does what this passage say, but how does it connect to the next passage? And what arguments and what's the plot, or what's the arguments that are being marshaled in here for this overall idea? That's really what a Bible study comes down to. And then, to simply say, all right, so what? Like, why? Who cares? And then to even go from there. So those are the things that I do when I begin to study the text. I break it down as best as I can. I break it up into sections. Then I keep asking those big questions about each section. And as I go through it, I'm learning more things as I go along. I might, go to chapter 2 and think, oh, that connects back to chapter 1 in that way. And then I originally thought this about this section here, but he says this. And so that helps me here. So like one of the ways that this has happened to me here, we're not there yet in chapter 3 here, but you notice in chapter 3, it's a lot about the tongue. And this tongue, this section here is so difficult to think, what, is there any hope for anybody who has a tongue? Is it better to just cut it off and remove it to the fire, James doesn't actually say what to do here about the problem of the tongue. He simply, in this text, just lays it out of why it's such a problem. That's really the center of chapter 3 there, or the center of the first section of chapter 3. But what I remember studying this section and thinking, all right, how do we solve this? If you go back to chapter 1, it solves it with this here, 5 through 7. But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. That's what James wants us to do about the tongue, is to go back to God for this wisdom and to use what God has said for this wisdom. So not only let him ask of God, but also in this section here, up. Where did it go? Receive the implanted word. Yeah, the doers. Yeah, there we go. Verse 21 there. Receive with humility the implanted word, which is to save your souls. And so if the tongue can destroy your soul, well, the implanted word can save it. And so that helped me when I was, redoing this, working through chapter 1 and to really chapter 3 as far as what is the solution does he have to the tongue? I believe you have to go back to chapter 1 to see what he's already said about it for that to begin to make sense. I pray this has been helpful for you. I'll see you guys in the next video.